Let me just. Sorry, could I just start again? Hello, this is Chris Cooper, and a big welcome to the Business Elevation Show. Welcome to our first edition of 2026. This is the show that's been running since 2011. I think we're one of the longest running business podcasts in the world, according to AI. We've been going a long time. It'll be 15 years this year. So today I've got Robin Dreeke on the show. We're going to be talking about forging unbreakable alliances, and I think this is going to be a really fascinating conversation today. So what I would recommend, if you've got the opportunity, maybe just take a few golden nuggets from this conversation that you can go and apply to help you to in your work, in your life, to elevate yourself so that you can contribute in a bigger way and a better way. This show really now is about conversations that can help you do more good in the world, because we believe that good matters. There's a lot of it feels like darkness at the moment around, and actually what I realised through the number of interviews I've done over the years is that I interview people who are doing great work out there, people who are really contributing in a really positive way, and actually that seems to fly against the general trends today, where you hear so much negativity in the media. And I think what we have to do is we have to lift ourselves, and so that we can feel empowered to contribute more and help be part of the solution to the challenges of the world today, rather than being another addition to the problems. And my guest today certainly does that. Robin Dreeke is a retired FBI special agent and former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioural Analysis Program. His career took him to really high stakes environments. He's recruited spies, he's worked in counterintelligence, he's navigated extreme human complexity. He's also completing at the moment the Appalachian Trail. He's doing various sections of it. He loves his fitness. He's a pilot, and he was just sharing with me how he was only 5 blocks away from 9/11 when the World Trade Centers came down. Must have been an incredible and horrific situation to be a part of. We're going to talk today about trust, about psychological safety, and understanding human behaviour to a really deep level. Robin is an author, and his latest book is about unbreakable alliances. And I think we need to be building more alliances out there with good people, in our business lives, in our communities, and even between ideological divides. So we're going to talk about some of these things today. So a big welcome to my guest today, to Robin Dreeke.
Thanks, Chris. And hey, congrats. 15 years. That's been a moment for you. You were into podcasts before podcasts were super podcasts. So great job.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know whether I'm foolish or whether I'm smart in terms of continuing this for so long. But I'm addicted to it. I just love having conversations with people like you, and it lifts me and it enables me to. It allows me to just connect with people who are doing good things out there, and share good ideas out to our audiences. I'm just finding out as well from Voice America, we're actually the broadest show in terms of number of countries that access. So we're over about 50 countries access this show on an episode basis, which is a little bit unusual, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Congrats. And again, you're saying such beautiful things there about doing good in the world, and good can be very subjective to people. And that's why I'm always taking good to that next level, which is really what can we do to have great, healthy, strong relationships? Because that healthy factor there's only one way to really measure healthy, and that is how do we positively lift each other up. And that can look different for a lot of different people. So our goods might be different, but when we're having those healthy, strong relationships and communications, that's where we can really focus and dial down on, because healthy is healthy anywhere you go.
Yeah, I could not agree more, really. And I suppose at the end of your life, when you look back and I mean, I suppose how you've impacted people on a positive basis probably determines how many people will turn up to say goodbye to you when you depart this world.
Yeah, it's a great thing you're saying there, because the one thing that pops in my mind, and we've talked about this before, some of my favorite authors, one of them is Robin Sharma, and he wrote a great book called Who Will Cry When You Die? And so that's the impact, we make. And you went through my bio very generously, and thank you. But the thing you said, high stakes environment, when you said that, the thing that really resonated with me was not what I did professionally, but what I did professionally gave me the skill set to really make the biggest impact in the world, because it's not the things we do in the present. It's what the legacy we're going to leave behind. And the legacy we leave behind is relationships we have, and what we taught those people in our lives to do to have those healthy, strong relationships. So the highest stakes impact I've ever made are my two kids, hands down. The skill set I got as a spy recruiter and behavior guy is really manifested most beautifully in my children that are doing amazing, successful things in their lives through healthy, strong relationships. I mean, my daughter is a nurse, a labor and delivery nurse. My son's a Marine Corps fighter pilot. And every time either of them faces one of life's greatest challenges, the first question I always ask them that we start working together is, all right, here's what you're facing. Who do we need to talk to, and who do we need to have a relationship with to work this problem? So it always comes down to relationships, because the what's another great book? The Fear to Be Disliked is another great book I loved. And in that book, he says all challenges and all of life's interpersonal conflagrations are really comes down to relationships. All of life's problems can be solved through relationships. And so that's why it's such a focus on that for me.
And you mentioned your kids there as well. I think it's a relationship, one of the most challenging sometimes relationships that you have to manage. And I know you're very proud of how your children have turned out, and that's full testament to you. But you have to work,
reps.
you have to work hard. You have to work hard with them, don't you? I remember running a program for work, clients of mine. With an insurance company board, and at the end of the program he said to me, he said, when the thing that's really come through from me from this conversation today is that when I was building this business, I didn't have any time for my kids, and now that they're older and I've got time, they haven't got time for me.
That is the saddest thing ever. One of the things I do consistently, and my family's gotten over the fact that it's actually not morbid what I do. But I'm very aware of my mortality, and all of our mortality. And I'm always thinking, like you just said, what do you want that legacy on your deathbed to be? And so many people always say, I wish I'd done more time with my family. I wish I'd worked less, or something like that. I'm very aware of all those things now. I'm 57, and even before then, like, I made career choices and didn't take promotions at certain times or move because of family issues, because I wanted to make sure I was the husband and father I needed to be. And I give all credit to my wife on this one. She would, every time and it's hard for me too. I'm a former Marine. I am genetically and biologically coded to want to conquer and achieve. I'm a hardcore type A. But my wife, who is a great loving critic, I think everyone in life needs a great loving critic, would always ask me, with every single opportunity I was ever presented, was this. She said, so that's fine, but are you going to be home more, or are you going to be home less? Because we don't care about what you do. We just want you more, or at least not less. And so my family is probably the greatest examples of someone who's very unimpressed with anything I've ever done professionally. They just care about who I am as a father and a husband. So they kept me very grounded, and so that I can actually live life in a way that it actually does come down to those relationships. Because again, when you learn to value these things at home, then it manifests in the business world, then it manifests outside there. So when you treat everyone in your life with positive, healthy, positive energy. Matter of fact, the three pillars I talk to my son all the time about whenever he's facing a challenge with an individual, because every challenge you face in life, even if you think it's learning how to turn a widget, it comes down to a relationship that is behind it. And that's this: bring positive energy. Because when you have positive energy and a positive confirmation bias, like even at your intro, you're saying all the negative things that are going on in the world and the challenges we're facing. Yeah, they're there if you're looking for them. But if you're also looking to see nothing but the positive, you're going to see a lot of positive. So always bring positive energy. The second is inspire people to feel safe with you. Because when people feel safe with you, they're going to move forward with you. So always thinking in terms of, and I was recruiting spies, I was always asking myself, what can I do to inspire this person to feel safe aligning with me? What can I do to inspire this person to feel safe cooperating with me, giving information to me, partnering with me? Because safety is the key bedrock that we are seeking and craving as a Homo sapien. And then the third one is be a great student. And that is the road to mastery. Mastery is not a title you give yourself because you've reached an end state. Mastery is realizing that there's always something to learn, falling in love with the process of discovery every day, knowing that you're always going to be a student to some and you're always going to be a master to others. And so having that mentality of bringing safety, being a humble student, and positive energy, when you have those three things in abundance every single day, who wouldn't want to align with you? Who wouldn't want to be on your team? And so whether you're doing it at home or you're doing it at work, it doesn't matter. The formula is exactly the same, because I use it recruiting spies and I use it with inspiring my children. It doesn't matter.
And if you want to build alliances with people, you've got them with your kids and your wife, by the sound of it, and then in your work, those elements are important, aren't they? Because the people want to be associated with you if you bring that positive energy and you bring that wisdom and you care about them.
Yeah, there's a great question you can ask yourself. Another one, I can't remember exactly the book this one was from, but it's a great thought experiment, as Albert Einstein would say. To always do these thought experiments. And here's a great thought experiment for everyone listening and watching. That is, ask yourself, if someone was going to walk around the corner from you right now, like right now, I'm in my home studio dining room. If someone was to walk around that corner coming in from the living room, and I saw them and caught them out of grins from my eye, and I just light up inside, I got my goosebumps going, and think to yourself, everyone take a second, ask yourself, who is it in your life that you would just light up for when, if all of a sudden you got a phone call, you got a text, or you saw them walking around the corner? And then ask yourself, what exactly makes them give you that feeling? Like, what do they do? And I guarantee you they're giving you like one of these four keys of communication. They're seeking your thoughts and opinions always. They're talking in terms of what's important to you. They're validating you without judging you. And they're giving you choices when appropriate. But the next critical question to ask yourself is, for you lighting up and them walking around the corner, do people light up when you walk around the corner?
Mm.
Do people look forward to hearing from you, or do they ghost you as soon as they see a text or an email or anything else coming in from you? And then you ask yourself, what can I do to add at least one thing to myself today that's going to allow someone to light up a little bit more? It's not about going from 0 to 100, as James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. It's 0 to 1 mile an hour. You take one little nugget, like you said beautifully at the beginning of the show, one or two little nuggets today, add those to yourself, and that cascading effect becomes parabolic over time. And that's where beautiful behavior shifts start happening, from wherever you're at to even better.
Yeah, I think it's lovely that I, I think I interviewed somebody and their book was about fireflies, and they talk about people who've got that inner energy. And I see, I have a community called the Elevation Collective, and really the community is about capturing those fireflies and bringing them into communities. So and when you've got all of that energy together, it's amazing then what can happen and the impact that can have. Because I think I look for people and I look for that energy in people because I want to be around them, and hopefully I have that, and they want to be around me, and then that magic starts to happen. But I think what you've described there is that, if you can become that that glowing that field of energy, it attracts folk in. It attracts it attracts alliances. It builds relationships.
You become the lighthouse.
You do.
People will often ask me, so how do you recruit a spy? And so you don't recruit a spy. You actually become the lighthouse that draws them in to solve one of their critical life challenges that they're looking for someone to solve in their lives. Because that's all recruiting anyone is. That's all businesses. That's all anything is always asking yourself, what can I do to be a resource for solving a critical life challenge in someone's life? And then when you take that ability to do that, and then you couple it with, can they trust you to allow them to be safe in their life? You can put those two things together and just cognitively think about those two things. That's where the magic starts happening. What am I going to do to solve a critical life challenge? And now here's the challenge of that. First, you have to actually know what a critical life challenge of them is, or any challenge or priority in their life. In order to do that, you have to get outside of me, 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 me. You got to start focusing on you. And so when you can get over yourself, your own challenges, your own insecurities, your own drama that you bring forward, and we all have it. You don't have to worry about it. We all have it. But be the thing that so few people are, and that is available for someone else. And the only way you to do that is to really focus on what is going on in their life, their challenges, priorities, pain points, and the friction points on other people's life. This is leadership 101. And it's not leadership by title and position. It's leadership by just being a resource for other people's success. The only way you can be an inspiration or a resource for someone else's success is to know what journey they're on and what they need to do to be successful on those journeys. Again, it's outside yourself.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about, you mentioned that we mentioned sort of high stakes sort of moments. You have a background of the Marine Corps and the FBI, and tell us a little bit about what took you there, and what did you learn, and from that, I mean, how are you different, having been through that experience of being in those two services, which are quite fascinating. They're very critical, but also a little bit murky as well.
Yeah, one of those common questions I'll get asked is, "Oh, so how did you get to be the chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program and recruit spies?" And
Yeah.
I was surrounded by a lot of people that it was a life dream and aspiration to be like on a behavioral team for the FBI. Um, it was easy for me. I failed at everything I wanted to do. Just how did all this happen? Lots of humbling moments. What did I learn along the way? How much I really sucked at what I really wanted to do. That's, one of the greatest things we can have as a human being is a humility to know what we need to work on. And it was an interesting thing when you take a deep dive and look at human beings that have enough self. Now, granted, most people, another great book, Tasha Eurich wrote a great book called Insight. It's all about our self-awareness. Most people judge themselves as being much more self-aware than you actually are.
Mm.
But when you have the ability to actually be open to understanding what your blind spots are and what you're really not good at and not faking it, you can really start the growth. And so for me, I always wanted to be an aerospace engineer, Navy pilot, and astronaut. That's what I failed at. And along the way, I had massive humbling moments, from almost failing out of the Naval Academy, barely getting in the Naval Academy, wanted to be a Navy pilot. My eyesight went to 20/30, which was uncorrectable at the time. Went Marine Corps. And so here's this guy that grew up in a very challenging background. I had to work at a young age because my family had no money. We had actually no heat in our house. I had to heat the house by wood. And so I'm chopping wood at a young age. So I was very gritty, very resilient, very problem solving. But luckily for me, my problem solving skills came through relationships. I got in the Naval Academy despite my bad test scores because relationships. Got through the Naval Academy because of relationships. But this skill set made me extremely self-focused because I had a lot of reps, as I call them, repetitions of solving my problems. Very good at solving my problems, great at building alliances for my problems. The challenge is when you start going into life and learning to work with others, especially if you're in a leadership position, it's not about solving your challenges, it's about solving the challenges of others.
Mm.
And so my first great humbling moment in the Marine Corps was when I was ranked last, dead last, 14 out of 14 out of all the second lieutenants in my squadron. And I go to so this, again, I had enough humility at the time to say, not blame the world around me. I was never, and that's the really key in life. Half the world can be divided up into victims in their mentality, and the other half are problem solvers.
Mm.
Problem solvers see the glass as half full and they own their own behaviors. They'll do something about it. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin wrote the great book, Extreme Ownership. You own the world around you. In other words, you own what you did to impact your own status. And so I owned it. I said to my major who rated me, I said, all right, sir, I get it. It's not you. I don't think you suck. I suck. I'm doing something wrong. What specifically am I doing wrong? And he goes, that's easy. You just need to be a better leader. But without context, for me, I didn't understand what he's saying because I thought I was a good leader. Because to me at that age, leadership was about popularity. People liked me. I was gregarious and outgoing. And I'm an extrovert. You can tell from this. I'm high energy, positive attitude. I thought that was leadership. But no, the focus was on me. And I didn't get it. And I said, all right, sir, be a better leader. How do I do that? What specifically do I'm always asking what questions? What makes people be very granular, not subjective by asking, why do you think that? Because then you get it's too mushy. I need to know what, because what will help someone be objective and give you very specific things. I said, what specifically do I need to do? And he goes, well, you just need to make it about everyone else but yourself. Again, I wasn't getting that. It was kind of hurtful because are you saying that I'm an egocentric guy? He goes, no, but you're not focused on other people. You're focused on yourself. I didn't understand. I said, what specifically for that? And he goes, well, that's life's challenge, isn't it? Figure it out. And so at 24 years old, he threw down the gauntlet. And for the rest of my life, I was like, I'm going to figure out exactly what he meant. And I love this journey because the thing that became, because of how we all grew up and the things that we experienced between roughly the age of 9 to 24 before the prefrontal lobes fully formed, imprints on us, and it becomes our arc, our starting point in life. And the things that we learned during that time period really become our behaviors that we bring with us throughout life, unless we start with an atomic habit of shifting them. And so at that age, at 24, I'm fully formed now. I'm in the very beginning ages and stages of life and professional development. I learned that I need to work on this. And so I started shifting that focus. And so I always had a passion and a desire and a love to working with people. I love people. I love leadership. And so, but I understood I don't have it. I'm not a natural born leader. Matter of fact, I don't think anyone's a natural born leader. It's those environment when you grow up in.
Mm.
And so from that young age, I started learning the skills behind how do I shift that focus from myself to others? And what does this journey really entail? And so the Marine Corps did a great job of opening my eyes, great opportunities through 5 years in the Marine Corps. And then I came in the FBI, and my entire job in the FBI was recruiting confidential human sources, working counterintelligence, recruiting spies, creating massive networks of relationships to solve critical challenges of world and national security of the United States and our NATO allies. I got better, and I'm getting better every day. Long answers. These are called narrative answers. I give a little too long.
I think what I'm taking from the conversation is and with human beings, you came from a background where you didn't have heating and you were chopping wood to heat the house, and probably you probably, I suspect, weren't born in an environment with enormous aspirations for you. I came from a steelworking town, and the aspiration for me was I'd probably become a steelworker. But something inside you drove you, forward, and initially that will have been about and survival, and about moving forward and trying to excel. But there's points in our life when suddenly we realise that actually it's about, as you say, about others. It's about we.
Right.
And we
The fun challenge with this was that I was what's called, and it sounds like you were too, a first generational professional. And so in other words, you're breaking the mold of not what's necessarily expected. There's lots of great hopes and aspirations and dreams that my family had for me. They just didn't have a skill set to give me to get there. So I was having to rely on others to help me with that. So no mentors, guides, or teachers along the way, that kind of slowed the progress. Some of us in life have great people in our lives for that. And if you don't, that's why having these amazing people, these teachers, mentors, and guides in our lives, and being aware of the fact of needing them is really key and critical. Matter of fact, with both my kids, first thing I always ask every question is, who can you talk to? Who's walked this path before? Who can give you some thoughts and ideas and be a resource, a mentor, and a guide for you along that path? I can do an awful lot, but the others that are closer to what it is you're trying to do can do even more. That's what I didn't realize I needed. And my parents didn't realize it either, because, I was the first one to go to college in my family. I'm still to this day, I'm the first one to ever own a home.
Yes.
My parents have never owned a home. So it's hard to help your children or anyone else in your life be out in front on things when you haven't been out in front yourself. That's why you just make people aware of, this is what you need to hear. Here's who you can talk to over here. This is why relationships and networks of good, healthy, strong relationships can really work and move through any challenge we face.
Yeah. Wow. You talk about, you don't particularly like the words of persuasion or influence. Just share a little bit about that. what's wrong with these concepts and what should leaders focus on instead? We've just got 2 minutes to commercial
Yeah,
break.
sure. So influence and persuasion, there's nothing wrong with any words. I don't judge any words. They just have an impact on the use of them. And so the word, I became hyper aware, as you can probably tell already, of things that are self-centered and self-focused. And the words influence and persuade, they can be very generous and be very good. They can also be used by the dark arts, but also the focus is on me. If I'm trying to influence someone, I'm trying to get them to do what I want them to do. If I'm trying to persuade someone, I'm trying to get them to do what I want them to do. But if I use the word inspire, and I'm thinking inspire, I'm never thinking of how can I influence or persuade someone to do something or share information with me. I'm thinking, how can I inspire them to want to? In other words, when I'm having a conversation, I'm thinking in terms of how can I unlock it from within them? So having a dialogue and discussion, recruiting a spy, I don't think, how can I persuade them or convince them to do what I want? How can I unlock a desire from within them and me just being the resource for them achieving what it is they want to achieve? And so that's where I kind of focused hard down on keeping that focus, not on what I want. How can I be a resource for what it is they want? How can I help them discover something that is on inside of them that they didn't know was otherwise there?
Excellent. I love that. Somebody once shared a quote with me, which was about what's really important in life is, rather than, if you want to help somebody move forward, is not to build a fire underneath them, it's to light the fire within them.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Light the fire within them. It was always there. They just
Yeah.
know it was there. And that's why having these great conversations and relationships helps unlock that fire from within. 100%.
Excellent. We're going to go to commercial break now. After the commercial break, we'll talk more about alliances and unbreakable alliances, and some of the sort of principles and thoughts and ideas that could help you to, build incredible alliances with your family, when you work within your communities, as a leader, and hopefully enable you to do even more good and to make your life, and the legacy that you leave within your life, even more significant. So I'll be back again with you in just a couple of minutes. Do join us after the break. Hi, this is Chris Cooper. I'm with Robin Dreeke. We've been talking about forging unbreakable alliances, and we've just had some great conversation in the break, actually. I'm just going to start, Robin. You shared with me before the interview that you were only 5 blocks away when the World Trade Centers came down in the FBI building. Do you want to just share briefly with us, what that experience, with the legacy that it left with you, really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's pretty profound, obviously. Like it was for everyone around the world. It's one of those quintessential moments in history, whether it's bombing of Pearl Harbor or JFK assassination, Elvis, all these things that
Yeah.
everyone remembers when something like this happens. And I was in the Manhattan field office of the FBI, because I came in the FBI in 1996, 97, and I got assigned to work, recruiting Russian spies in Manhattan. So our office in 26 Federal Plaza is about 5 or 6 blocks away from the World Trade Center. I was on the street that day around 9, whenever it got hit, I think 9:15, getting a cup of coffee like I did every single morning with my friends on the squad. I heard and the first plane hit the North Tower. I looked up. I saw everything. So the next thing that happened was I went up to my floor in our building, which is the 25th floor, and I'm watching from almost eye level as the fire and smoke is expanding. And we didn't really know the scope of what was going on yet. And all I kept remembering saying to myself was, I wonder how they're going to put that fire out. It looked tremendous. It didn't look like, I mean, think about it. It's something so high up and you saw what was going on. It's like, how are they going to deal with this? And then that's when it really started getting nuts, because I don't know how long it was, because this is before the South Tower got hit. I started seeing it. Everyone around me started seeing what we thought was debris falling from the World Trade Center. But then when you started seeing, I apologize for the graphic nature of this, but when you start seeing people's legs and arms kind of flailing, I realized I was witnessing people jumping from the North Tower. And I counted about 8 people right before the South Tower got hit. And so from that point on, for the next probably 6 or 7 months or so, we didn't have any days off. I was on the 12-hour shifts. You're 12 hours on, 12 hours off, which didn't account for commute time. So I was on a 6 a.m. to midnight shift every day, 7 days a week. It's a grind, doing everything you could possibly imagine, whether it's down at the site itself, interviewing people all over the New York State, following up on leads out at the Fresh Kills landfill, where you're literally, we called it raking for fingers and toes, where you're trying to find any human remains for family members or anything for anyone to help in any way whatsoever. The volunteers all up and down the West Side Highway, when we're trying to go to and from work, we're always handing out water, sandwiches, homemade stuff, thank you notes, signs. I mean, you name it. The outpouring of support was tremendous. And talking about the impact it had on me, was every day, you'd go down to wherever your work site was, and you'd go through all these checkpoints, and you'd have all these people on the side of the road cheering. And you had to have your windows open, because they were throwing in, volunteers are putting water, respirators in your car, everything they could, and holding up signs. Kids were holding up signs, please find my daddy, please find my mommy. Heart-wrenching. And so every day you went to work saying, I have to try to save the world. And yet you're only one person. I didn't realize this at the time. And every day after you covered leads and you did really at the time what you thought was nothing, I did nothing today of value. Like I had lead number 2 on this investigation. And you know what the lead was? Lead number 2 of Twin Bomb, it was called at the time of the case, was contact this individual who claimed he saw a plane flying down the Hudson River and hit the tower. That was my lead. You and 5 million other people. So, I mean, you see how insignificant you felt. And so I talked to the guy. I said, yeah, I saw the plane flying down. So thank you very much. And you covered your lead. And I got a couple more leads, the same thing. But at the end of the day, you go home and say, I didn't do enough to save the world today. I got to try harder tomorrow. And so I got into a cycle of not thinking I was doing enough.
Mm.
Because I didn't see any difference this one interview was making. I didn't see any difference between raking for finger and toe and finding a piece of scalp from a woman's head. That was sad. I have a piece of glass right here I showed you before the show. This is from the World Trade Center itself. This is from the section from Windows in the World at the very top, because I knew the section we were working at the time. After about a year of really overworking and spending way too many hours doing this, I finally hit that point. I don't know what caused it, but I finally hit the point where I said to myself, I'm not saving the world, but I can make a difference one person at a time.
Yeah.
And that's when I stopped trying to think macro and I really focused in on all the things I had learned throughout my life before that, and then this intensive year of, but you can make a difference one person at a time. And that's when it really became laser focused on how do we have a great conversation, because every time I talk to someone, they become another resource for me, for the Bureau for National Security of the World. I mean, I talked to interviewed Saddam Hussein's dentist, who gave us a lot of information about how Saddam Hussein was trying to evade bunker busters going off. I talked to, I mean, I learned so much. I probably interviewed people from 22 different nationalities around the world during a course of like 4 or 5 years, and just in New York alone. Because any time a conflict in the world would break out, what would the Bureau, domestic intelligence organizations, what they typically have to do is they have to go interview everyone from that country here, so you can try to gain ground truth, intelligence, and information for policymakers to try to make the world a safer place. And so you get really, really good and better because of repetitions of doing that. And so what I learned is you can make a difference one person at a time without trying to think macro. So that
Yeah.
was my major takeaway probably from 9/11 for me.
So you're at that point, because you were recruiting spies,
Mm-hmm.
and you're leading this behavioural counterintelligence program. You overnight, did your role change to become a kind of a lead investigator on around 9/11? Did everything just
Yes.
change
I,
because of the?
yes-ish. So everyone always, when people want to get into the behavioral side of FBI, they think they can be hired to become a profiler. But no, it doesn't work that way. First, you have to be an agent. Then you have to spend years on the street doing really good at what you're assigned to do. Then you apply and things like that. So when I came in the bureau, I had no idea what I was going to do inside the FBI, because I just by chance and the path the universe presented before it, I got to work counterintelligence. I got to work against the Russian threat here in the United States, in New York. And along that path, I was introduced to the behavioral team for counterintelligence called Behavioral Analysis Program. They came in and helped me assess a few of my cases. I then applied and got on the team after 9/11. And then I was a team member on the team for a number of years as a collateral duty, because inside the Bureau, most behavioral teams and then people around them, it's a collateral duty to your primary job of being an investigator, of an
Right,
FBI agent.
right.
And so became a team member at the end of 2001 to 2002, and I was the rest of my career as a collateral duty. And then I took over the team as a chief of it probably in 2010,
I see.
until or 2013-ish, pretty much for the rest of my career, until I actually stepped down to work in my local office here in the FBI so I could be close to my kids in their final years of high school. But to answer your question, yes, right after 9/11, when I was working Russians or recruited Russian spies for the next year, I was not doing that. Although I had to craft some things, because one of my Russian sources that was a great confidence human source, I called him right after 9/11 had happened. I said, all right, Michael, we're done working Russians right now. We need Middle East now. And no kidding, within 2 weeks, I was talking to a relative of a very, very high ranking person from a Middle Eastern country, which we actually had then a back channel between these two countries through my source, because of this other source I had. Prevented major conflicts in the world and everything else. I wrote about it in Sizing People Up, that book. I have to protect the names and innocent, for national security purposes, but we did some, as I call them, big moments.
Yeah.
But so yeah, then after that, about a year of working Middle East exclusively, like the entire bureau did, we shifted back to our regular day jobs of recruiting spies. But
Yeah.
the entire time, though, I was working, developing confidence human sources nonstop throughout my entire bureau career.
And doing such, this work's is high stakes. How do you, with some of the things that you experienced, and I guess there's a lot of confidential things that you would understand are going on beneath the surface that a lot of people don't know. How do you sleep at night when you're getting insight into things that to many people will be very surprising, probably.
That's a great question. At the time, because again, you see your role and you see what's going on. What starts happening is the TV news starts really pissing you off because it's so inaccurate. uh,
Yeah.
from what ground truth actually is. So you just start ignoring it. Again, I am a lover and study, and we've talked off air too, of history. I read a tremendous amount of history because one of the things I love about reading history and biographies of great historical figures is it gives you beautiful context. And when you have context of what the world has been through and what the world is and what us as a species is, all that, it helps you realize that as bad as you think it is now, like when you at the opening part of the first segment, you were saying, no, we actually got it pretty good now compared to any other time in history. This is
Yeah.
actually very, very common. It wasn't that long ago, roughly only a couple hundred years ago, when you could not travel down a country road without fear of bandits taking your life and taking what you own.
Yeah.
Back in times of Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest biographies I loved, Leonardo da Vinci, how common it was for a conquering nation to come in, take your town, throw you out of your house, and then you're homeless for the rest of your life. And you even had they even had homeowners insurance back then, and it still didn't work. We are in really, really good times. The probability of physical harm by another human being on another human being, even though we see it in the news all the time, is at an all-time low for our species.
Mm.
So that doesn't mean it's perfect, but it means it's better than it's been. So one of the things I do is I don't think in terms of our evolution and making things better in terms of generations, because generation is roughly 25 years is how each generation is roughly measured. I'm looking in hundreds, more in thousands of years that we get better. So we are a very large ship like the Titanic with a very teeny rudder. and
Yes.
so and so how do we turn that rudder? By having if you can be one person with a great, healthy, strong relationship, it turns that rudder just a teeny bit more to get us as a species better on track to make tomorrow and the next generation's opportunities for healthier, more beautiful relationships just a little bit better. So
Mm.
how do I keep calm? I just keep a historical context of things.
That's great. That's great. And I think with communication today, you can probably have more of an impact quite
Yeah,
quicker, with the technology
100%.
that's available.
100%. So people that are, just think about the impact that your podcast has had for 15 years. That would not have happened 50 years ago.
No.
And so being able to have people on your show, as many as how many episodes have you have now, Chris, roughly?
Well, you're 625.
Oh my gosh, think about
It's unique.
625 people, positive impacts, impacting how many people they talk to. That is legacy. That's how you make the world a better place. So how do I sleep at night knowing the things I know? Because I know there's other people doing things like this. So I'm good.
Yeah. So from your book about unbreakable alliances, what do what's an idea, a thought that people should take away today that would be helpful and they can do something with?
Here is the golden keys to any communication. I love this. I got my goosebumps going. I gave a teaser for them earlier about who do you look forward to seeing walking around that corner. And these 4 golden keys are what I discovered. This is taking that subjective art form of how do you make it about someone else that my Marine Corps major all those years ago couldn't tell me because he said, I don't know, just figure it out. Because human interactions can be very subjective and very fluid. But they at the heart of who we are as a species, we are extremely self-centered, not self-centered like narcissistic, self-centered for survival. We are genetically and biologically all coded to seek our safety, security, and prosperity for ourselves and those we care about in our lives. All human beings are very predictable.
Hmm.
Safety, security, and prosperity for ourselves and those we care about. Now, when you want to communicate with someone, if you want to make it so you inspire them, unlock that fire from within them that they want to align with you. In other words, what can you do to inspire them to feel safe with you? You got to demonstrate that you see them and that you value them. And how do you do that? These 4 golden keys. Number 1, seek their thoughts and opinions instead of going on and on and on, like I am today, about what I think. 2, talk in terms of their challenges, their priorities, their pain points, and all the friction points in their lives instead of going on and on and on and lamenting about your own. 3, This is the golden key of everything. Non-judgmental, active curiosity. I was so blessed that I didn't get to become an astronaut because working inside the Bureau and having to interview and try to inspire people to cooperate with me for over 22 years before I retired, I learned that every single human being is extremely fascinating if you let go of judging what you think they are. Meet them where they're at and be actively curious. What I mean by that is don't just be curious about what it is you want to know, be curious about what it is they want to share. That keeps the focus completely on them. Follow up with things that they share. Everyone is always going to give you a buffet of information to follow up on by simply asking a simple question. Like Chris, for you, I mean, think about where you could go with this question if I asked you this question right now and you had time to answer. Chris, what was that spark and inspiration all those years ago that inspired you to be who you are today and try out for a cover band and host this podcast for 15 years? Think about the things that you'd respond with, and then all I would be doing is listening to you without an agenda of where I wanted to go. My only goal is to pull out where the things that you're willing to share and ask you more about, ooh, Chris, tell me more about that. Who was it that did this then? What was next for you now? Those are those open-ended questions that's going to give me a buffet of things to explore that you wanted to share. And what's going on when I'm doing that? Your dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins are firing in your brain. Your big four are saying, this person is good for me in my life, and I feel fantastic. I now become the person you can't wait to see walk around that corner. And then finally, number four is you empower people with choices. Because when you empower people with choices, they feel safe because they feel in control. The oldest, one of the funniest, not funniest, but one of the greatest movies I enjoyed watching was, what was the name of it? Oh, now it's fleeting me. But it's all about the oldest religion on the planet. And it's not a religion. It's what we do as a species. We seek and crave control. We did not evolve outside the cave unless we could control our environment, because our main drive is to protect our offspring. So we want to control our environment. We want to control food sources. All these things we seek and crave control. When you empower someone with this choice, you allow them and inspire them to feel safe because they feel in control.
Yeah.
Because that's what gives us that feeling of safety. So those four things are what the keys are to a great human interaction.
I love that. There's some real golden nuggets there. Write those down, I think. And reflect on them, think about them. I was thinking about when you said, certainly I think points 1 and 2, and you mentioned win friends and influence people. And what came into my mind was that the notion, which I think is a very powerful one, to seek first to understand before being understood.
It's Walt Whitman, I think, right?
Is that right? I was thinking it was in that original. I thought it was in the original. Was that before then?
There's a requote by him, I believe.
Was it? Okay, yeah. Okay.
It was an ancient Greek philosopher. I think it's the first one. I don't know if it's Epictetus, but yeah, it's been around a while.
Yeah,
Stoic philosophy. I love it.
It's so important, isn't it? And I see in so many situations, and myself with clients, is when they've got themselves into a mess, it's because they've not been listening. They've not had the presence. They've not been finding out what's important to the other person. They've just been telling them what's important, and it can lead to all sorts of conflict. And sometimes they're so far off the mark.
Yeah, I love that. You cannot tell someone else what important is. Only they can.
That's right. Yeah. It's been an absolutely fascinating interview. This I've really enjoyed it, Robin, and you certainly moistened my eyes as well with the talk about your experience of 9/11. Do you have a final message that you'd like to leave people with today?
We can leave with this one. It's not about how you make people feel about you that matters. It's how you make them feel about themselves. Yeah. So think hard about what can you do to inspire someone to feel safe with you and be a resource for their success, and you'll see magic happen.
Well, thank you. You've been a brilliant guest. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I should go back through this and pick out some golden nuggets for myself. So thank you very much indeed, Robin.
Thank you.
If you want to find out more about Robin, go to robindreeke.com. That's DREEKE.com. And check out his website there and what he does today and how he contributes to people in the world, which I know is very, very significant. just learn from people. Robin mentioned earlier on about actually finding mentors and people that can inspire, that you can learn from, and help you. And people like Robin are great to be accessing their content and material, because there's lots of wisdom there that you can take on board from years of experience. So go and check that out. On next week's show, we have Paul Davis. Paul has written a fantastic new book around, just looking for it on my shelf actually to try and remember the title of it, but it's around the snakes and ladders of life, actually, the game of life. He's a really insightful consultant and author. I think it's about his 5th or 6th book now, from Ireland. So we'll be with him next week, looking at the game of life. And he's part of my community, actually, and people are very inspired by him. His wisdom is quite unparalleled, actually. So do check that interview out next week. And once again, big thank you to Robin. And go away, have a think about what you've learned today and how you can use it to improve the world through your sphere of influence, and make a positive contribution. So take care.